Severance Season 2 Episode 10 brings out all the stops, multi-layered relationship problems, certified lumen cuck rooms, Nick Cannon's drumline, and taking the idea of work wife to a whole new level.
Sunshine, lollipops, and...
Please welcome your MDR refiner of the quarter, Innie Jared B.
Thank you. You're too kind. We did it. You helped me. Innie Jared B reached the imaginary quota, granting me a delicious waffle party. So let's dive into the Severance Season 2 finale as I dive into these waffles. And stick around till the very end for a very special thank you. Now let's waffle.
Things pick up right where Episode 9 left off, making Episode 9 and 10 kind of one big Season 2 finale movie, as Innie Mark is slowly drip-fed information on what is really going down, where he's at, why the grandiose Gemma rescue mission, after revealing that no, he has not completed the Cold Harbor file.
Obviously a huge relief because Gemma is still alive.
Filling in Mark about the dark testing room elevator, he interrupts Cobell saying, "Irving's drawings?" Cobell's reaction here is suspicious. She looks a smidge confused on how Innie Mark already knows about this elevator, let alone how the heck Irving was able to draw this elevator. Now, my leading theory on this is because his napping and dreaming spells allowed information to bleed through his subconscious, but does this then mean that Irving at one point was a tester, or at least was aware of the mysterious floor in his previous 6 years working at Lumen before he was severed?
Maybe, possibly, if there is a Season 3.
Cobell and Devin walk Innie Mark through the plan, as this is basically an elaborate prison break with only one guy switching between his two selves to save Gemma, finally folding in the Marks working together from the Season 2 intro. However, Devin's response about ending them has such a dark double meaning.
If we can prove that they fucking kidnapped her, it will end them.
Yes, this could theoretically be the end of Lumen if Gemma's kidnapping hits mainstream news, but also is the end of Innie Mark, Helly, and every other Innie that exists. This type of character development is next level because one character, in a sense, has two motivating factors, with them being at opposite ends. A light of hope comes into play when Innie Mark gets to watch the video messages from his Audi. And this was such a wonderful, heartwarming message and reaction from Adam Scott, just watching himself. Top tier acting, but it also shows how Innie Mark is so smitten and initially intrigued by his Audi. Casually looking up at the fireplace ornaments, both being pregnant. Yes, this is a birthing retreat, but also shows how Innie Mark was birthed by Audi Mark. Like any hardcore 80s sci-fi movie fan, these video messages reminded me so much of Total Recall scenes of Arnie watching his alter ego, initially being enamored by this familiar stranger, only to learn more and more and soon realize that, yeah, these two yous couldn't be further from one another. Audi Mark knows that he's dealing with the stubborn kid of himself trying to connect by mentioning his severance floor crush on Helene, a cute callback to Rickon referring to Cobell as Cobelvig, but the power dynamic is far from being in his favor. Innie Mark is bathed in the warmth of the fire safely inside while recording these messages. Audi Mark, on the other hand, is stuck on the outside in the otherwise cold, drab blues of winter, completely flipping the red and blue Innie and Audi dynamic that we've grown accustomed to. After stumbling through explaining reintegration, his drinking problems after Gemma's accident, and are they gonna top or bottom one another?
Hey, yo!
Innie Mark sees that he has the power in this little back and forth that obviously leads to him making the demands and then storming out of the cabin.
Honestly, I don't know if I would be able to persuade myself, which in a roundabout way makes you think they never even really thought about the whole Severance Innie conundrum.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
While the cabin events are happening, Jaime and Helly continue their awkward meeting in MDR, learning the "you tricked me" from episode 9 is in regard to the Lumen Gala at the end of season 1. Helly was actually the one Jaime was talking to in the restroom before her speech, and it very much upset his fragile ego.
I threw a tin of candies.
Even though this interaction is only a couple of minutes, there's so much backstory and relational information we can infer.
Jaime clearly has no love for Helena. Well, he kind of sort of did probably when she was little and was behaved, lived by the 9 Lumen Core principles, especially when James first introduced her to the Severance chip.
Do you remember when I brought home the first chip to show you? I remember you said to me, "It's so pretty, Daddy. Everybody in the whole world should get one."
However, Helena becoming a rebellious teen seems to have forced Kier's spirit out of her, hinting at Helly being Helena's preferred persona. She's had to push down her true feelings, intentions, personality to fit into the Egan Nepo baby mold. James adds to our theories from episode 9's "She's One of James" reveal at the birthing retreat, admitting in the most Bane way possible he's just out there banging it out.
Wish I had others in the shadows.
This proves our dark assumptions, and heck, with not knowing Helly's mother, she could also be in the same boat, really adding a darker view to the news story back in Season 1, talking about a Lumen employee getting pregnant at work. James adds he saw Kier and Helena once again, and there it is when Helly is angry and threatens his life. Something that seems a very on-brand for Kier, borderline insanity as James leaves. Back to the cabin, Outie Mark has to tag in Cobell because he has entirely lost his Innie's trust. Too much of a stubborn child, as basically the entire mystery surrounding MDR, refining, the files, Gemma, and Lumen's Severance goals are nicely laid out. Surprisingly, a lot of this has been theorized, so thumbs up everyone. The numbers they are refining are in fact Gemma, or rather a doorway into her mind, and each file completion resulted in a new Innie. So back in episode 7, every room Gemma goes into is a new Innie identity. The old sliced egg was our hint. Each number cluster also ties to one of the 4 tempers: woe, frolic, malice, and dread.
Which further explains how and why the MDR employees had to feel something in order to sort the numbers.
The building blocks of our mind, as we find out the dentist room was the Wellington file, the airplane was Drainsville, and Allentown was the Christmas room. This means that there are 24 versions of Gemma, 25 being the completion of Cold Harbor. Now, why is 25 the threshold Lumen is striving for? Well, it could tie to 25 in the Bible symbolizing new beginnings, readiness for spiritual responsibilities, and or a period of restoration, as Cold Harbor's completion seems to be the kickoff of Lumen's
prestige worldwide,
Severance control and beginning of Kier's new vision of the world, reverse engineer the chip after being extracted from Gemma's skull, and ready it for the mass markets. Capitalism at its finest. This is why Gemma will not live after Cold Harbor. Not that it's a near-death experience, rather that it's the only way to fish the Severance chip out of her noggin. Sacrifice for progress, as Innie Mark is too obsessed with his love for Helly. Despite Cobell saying that she's just using him, he storms out in one of the coolest transitions from the cabin to the severed floor. Here is a complete wackadoo new painting taking the place of the Kier pardons his betrayers, with this new one titled The Exalted Victory of Cold Harbor. After a very brief search, the painting and many of the other Kier paintings may be taking ironic, wry inspiration from Christian nationalist John McNulty's own political and religious paintings, adopting a very similar style, layout, and imparting Kier's religion on everyone pictured socially and politically. All in the sacred waters of Woe's Hollow in front of the tallest waterfall in the world, with the 9 Egans prominently portrayed godlike above all else. It's very odd that almost every single character we know is pictured here, even down to Petey, the Shadow People, and Rickon's friends from Season 1, so Lumen is no doubt listening. Cold Harbor's completion is one of the greatest things to ever happen from Lumen, placing Mark again in the center like a godlike person, with his hands again similarly mirroring Drummond's back in episode 5, being an occult hand placement to Baphomet's as above, so below, essentially expressing the perfect harmony of mercy with justice. In Lumen's case, perfect control with widespread severance use. Helly and Mark wander the dark hallways to MDR as the light guides them, where it feels way more like a Jigsaw wanna-play-a-game trap than the typical office desk setting. The Perpetuity Wing Kier Egan holds an envelope addressed to Mark as Helly tests for Scooby-Doo following eye shenanigans. It sounds like all of the Egans like to watch. The letter entices Mark with a waffle party reward once Cold Harbor is completed, as the Lumen computer startup sound can be heard.
Oh.
I love these Mark and Helly back and forths here because both are in the dark about what is really going on, with them barely being seen in the frame, only to show clearer once they understand more of what's really happening. Jane being on the severed floor, Gemma's chip extraction, all of it. It's heartbreaking, but also lovingly cute when the two start to talk about place names. Delaware, Zimbabwe, with them both sharing a laugh about the equator. This whimsical back and forth is backed by the Bert and Irving love motif.
I come here sometimes.
And the equator.
Eternal Sunshine on the Spotless Mind is no doubt a reference at this moment, both promising to meet one another at the equator after all of this is done. Similarly to Clementine telling Joel to meet her in Montauk. I'll also add that the equator is the midpoint around the world, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is a season 3 or even season 4, this subtle bit of cute dialogue is actually foreshadowing the world being cut in half, or rather, being severed. Helly and Mark hold hands, exchanging the testing elevator directions as they bin the final numbers of 4 Cold Harbor. While this is happening, surprise, surprise, Dylan G's outie did not end his innie's life. His resignation request, like many others previously, was declined. However, unlike Helena's video message from season 1, Innie Dylan has a few handwritten paragraphs expressing his decision. Side note, MVP to every scene Milchick has in this episode, sprinting out of this room like he's in a damn 1960s Batman episode absolutely killed me.
It's a beautiful moment between Innie and Outie Dylan.
Unlike Mark's back and forth, Dylan is allowing care and love for himself, sharing both good and bad, ultimately leaving the choice up to his Innie, showing that the Innie, in a roundabout way, is the better version of Dylan in some capacity, and probably got Outie Dylan out of his funk, back to being a loving, caring, supportive husband and father. It's so weird that such an emotional scene can theoretically be about one person and kind of makes you think about yourself, how a person internally treats themselves, and those parts of you that you've hidden away may actually be the best parts of you. I'm a little bit maybe tearing up while writing this, so let's just move on. Innie Dylan is back. He's safe. Let's kick butt. Let the Cold Harbor file completion commence. Of course, Lumen, being the grandiose company that they are, would pull out all the stops, with this escalating into nonsensical territory. Firstly, Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project begins the hype, being the Chicago Bulls hype music since 1984, the original GOATs. This wax Keir Egan is actually a newer animatronic model mentioned by Gwen back in episode 1.
Do the Egans move?
No.
Huh. Probably because it's an older branch. Ours were animatronic. They even did this little choreographed dance.
So yours just stand there?
As he stiffly moves around, congratulating Mark on becoming one of the most important people in history. By the way, if you didn't know, Ben Stiller is the voice of Keir Egan. You're welcome. As Keir introduces Milchick in a cheesy Johnny Carson Tonight Show-like monologue, it's a cute back-and-forth barb fest as Keir razzes Milchick about his verbose vocabulary, something that has been, a point of contention for Milchick throughout this entire season 2. So I'm a little surprised that Milchick just takes this instead of really standing up to this robotic Keir. But Milchick does hit back, stating that, much like Keir's past, it's been exaggerated. Keir was actually 5 inches shorter than the animatronic. Now, height apparently brings more power and respect, so Lumen has yet another lie about Keir, which I see as a whole, Napoleon complex weaved in there, being the opposite, where the masses believe that Napoleon was this short little wee man at 5 feet tall, when in reality his true height was closer to that of 5'7". It's all about control the power with Lumen, as the Keir animatronic goes off script in a passive-aggressive way. Now, quick theory, I think that this is actually Keir Egan, or at least part of his consciousness. We've been theorizing for weeks about what happens to the previous CEOs, What is revolving? Is the board actually a motherboard? And are all of them living in a digital landscape somewhere? Well, to me, this kind of lends evidence that a majority of this is true. Here and the other CEOs can speak and view things like through Natalie's eyes, but that's their limits.
If there is a season 3, I believe that this has got to be one of the mysteries that's revealed.
The festivities continue as we're introduced to a whole new severed floor department, C&M, choreography and merriment. Nick Cannon and all of his kids. This is so out there that I have to appreciate the insanity of it all. Like, Lumen has taken inspiration from Jordan Belfort's Wolf of Wall Street's legends and made it reality. This is the escalation of a corporate pizza party, and just imagine you're a severed employee, no clue what you do all day, and it's just marching band practice. The leader of C&M is listed as Bukeo in the credits, meaning brings joy or adds joy. Their white instruments are actually shown in the Season 2 intro flowing out of the Irving mug. They march into MDR playing the same Kier hymn that we've heard a couple times now, all accompanied by blue and green lights, referencing the very first Severance chip prototype mentioned back in Season 1.
The prototype. It had the blue and green lights back then.
Milchick takes over as the lead drum major, giving us some of the slickest moves, rivaling his defiant jazz routine as they bust into the ballad of Ambrose and Gunnell.
I couldn't pinpoint this song, so anyone with a better ear, please let me know in the comments.
Operation Mark Saves Gemma kinda kicks off now, with Mark sneaking out of MDR heading to the testing elevator, Helly distracting Milchick, and Gemma unfortunately being prepped for Cold Harbor. Gemma opens her closet to PTSD and anxiety, the same outfit she was last seen wearing back in episode 7 before her supposed car accident. Everyone's watching this historical moment as Jane pulls up to a masturbatory cuck room, lotion, Kleenex, front row seat. Gemma is guided to Cold Harbor, and once inside, all of our questions and theories are finally answered. She has to put together IKEA furniture without instructions. In this final room, Gemma is tasked with taking apart the very same baby crib after her miscarriage, the same Mark was aggressively trying to put together when the pair were reeling from the inability to start a family. All while Billie Holiday's I'll Be Seeing You, Mark and Gemma's song, softly plays in the background. Surprisingly, if you were paying really close attention, the baby crib label back in episode 7 spells out Cold Harbor, a hint that this was the final room.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
This was the most traumatic event to Gemma, and if Lumen can suppress her feelings and memories, they have a winner on their hands. And yeah, the Severance barriers are holding as the season's final Who Are You is asked, and Gemma hasn't a clue. Right when Gemma enters the Cold Harbor room, I pointed to my screen and was like, this feels like a 2001 A Space Odyssey reference. In that Stanley Kubrick film, the ending finds our main character in a weird sanitized white room with some furniture. Now, the ending interpretation of 2001 has been debated ever since its release in 1968. However, in a 1980 Japanese interview, Kubrick shed some light on his interpretation of the ending, explaining it as a human zoo where David is observed with no sense of time, oddly similar to how Gemma is basically in the same situation, tested in various rooms and observed from outside parties. Kubrick continues, saying that David is transformed into some sort of super being and sent back to Earth, suggesting him finding the Jupiter monolith allowed David to move on to the next step of human evolution. Similar to how the Severance chip barriers hold, Gemma in the eyes of Lumen and Kier has evolved into a new type of human, one free from pain and trauma, theoretically a life full of only happiness. Like the whole Severance procedure, it sounds great on paper, but robs you of the you are.
Let's swing over to the goats, and I gotta be honest, the amount of comments, theories, just conversations about the goats was staggering.
Like, Rickon is a goat because he can climb cliff faces is staggering. Funny enough, they are here to just be sacrificed, you silly little goose. Lorne from Mammalian's Nutribulls, whose hairstyle is similar to Imogene's, wheels a baby little goat into a hidden room right across from the testing elevator. Now, I'm curious how many other hidden rooms there are. As it's revealed, this goat will be sacrificed alongside Gemma, buried with her, and is supposed to spiritually guide Gemma into the afterlife to Kyr. The goat's name is Emil, meaning to excel, showing it's probably the best of her flock, while encompassing Lumen's most sought-after core value, wiles. Wearing all black shows the darker side of Kyr's teachings. They ready the goat to get an Anton Chigurh bolt to the head treatment as Drummond grabs what looks like a .22 RF Cash Humane bolt pistol and readies. Lorne kind of pleads with him, asking how many more, showing that this is happening over and over and over again, not only for her baby goats, but sacrifices down on the testing floor, making the room door across from Gemma's even darker. And the fact that only 1 in 5 files are completed before they expire tells me Lumen has been going through hundreds of people to perfect the Severance chip and its barriers. I guess it kind of makes sense why Kyr is a quieter town with a massive cemetery right next to Lumen housing. However, the ritual is cut short as they hear Mark attempting to get into the testing elevator. Here, Severance evolves into a much more violent show than we've ever seen before because the initial punch from Drummond is intense, not to mention Lorne's haymakers and Drummond's beatings. Dylan and Helly are keeping Milchick trapped in a cage, almost like he's on the other side of the door as Dylan locking him out of the security room back in Season 1. Even some of the dialogue is the same as Mark takes Drummond hostage, heading down to Gemma's floor. Now, the last 15 minutes of this episode is so perfectly done, blending dark emotional beats with borderline slapstick comedy, because Mark switching from his innie to his outie and accidentally pulling the pistol trigger was one of the funniest things I've seen in 2025. The nurse freaking out, calling Mark a f***o, and Dr. Maurer panic running adds to the pure lunacy of Severance. Mark uses Drummond's blood on his tie to open up the Cold Harbor door as he is finally reunited with Gemma after 2 long years. Also, take into account that this version of Gemma's innie literally was just born like moments ago, only to meet a random bloodied man and learn that this is who you're married to, like a complete mind f***. The next 5 minutes are an emotional roller coaster of happiness and love. As Mark rescues Gemma, she flips back and they embrace and kiss and smile. Such a beautiful reunion as they tear off towards the elevator to escape. Dr. Maurer tries to stop them, exclaiming, "You'll kill them!" referring to the 25 different innies that exist on Gemma's Severance chip. They kiss and embrace as things get awkward. Because now it's Innie Mark S. kissing Miss Casey. I know this is all supposed to be serious, but the placement of comedy is so f***ing good in this episode, as Mark's tandem escape plan is almost complete. Running to the exit stairwell from Season 1, the red alert lights going off, Milchick submitting to C&M led by Dylan. It's such a great ending. Lumen's downfall. However, as things are about to end on the typical fairy tale Hollywood story loved ones reunited ending, but remember, that ain't life, babe. As Gemma goes through the door and Innie Mark instead pauses, thinking about his life, what he will lose. Will his outie be happy? Can he be happy? Is there a way for both of them to be happy? As Helly turns the corner and the whole plan goes. Hints of the Irving and Burt love motif bleed through the alarms at this point, with Mark literally reenacting the distracted boyfriend meme. The concept of ego death back in episode 7 comes full circle as Mark's outie is essentially the ego, and Innie Mark is bringing about his death. Reminder, ego death refers to a profound, intense, and transformative experience where a person's sense of self or personal identity dissolves or is temporarily lost. And during an ego death, individuals may feel a strong sense of interconnectedness with everything around them and a dissolution of boundaries between themselves and others. Innie Mark and Helly don't care about any of the specifics. They are taking life into their own hands as Mark slowly walks to Helly away from Gemma screaming in the little window. Truly, this moment is brilliant from so many different angles. The filming, the feelings, all of it. Mel Torme's version of The Windmills of Our Mind begins to play as Helly and Mark interlace fingers. Helly gives the most, "Yeah, I f*** your man" smug look, as the two run down the endless Lumen hallways into hopefully what will be a beautiful life together. The end.
Okay, so there's like a bajillion things to break down just from this final 2 minutes. Seriously, it could have been like a 30-minute video itself. The visuals, the ongoing season 2 themes, and the song choice really all just kind of clash together in the most loving, horrifying, real ending ever.
Let's start with the song choice, The Windmills of Our Mind. We're gonna get sweaty, so buckle up. The song's American lyrics were originally written by songwriting duo Alan and Marilyn Bergman, stating that the lyrics kinda had a psychedelic vibe to them, later stating in an interview that she was influenced by an experience when she was a child. When I was 7, I had my tonsils out, and as they gave me the ether, I remember this circular descent into a sleep state. Boom, we have our ether connections. While Alan added that he was trying to invoke a swirling feeling of anxiety, and you can't turn your brain off. Boom, we got the severance chip shenanigans. And then adding in a 2006 interview, the lyric we wrote was a stream of consciousness. We felt that the song had to be a mind trip of some kind. As this is Mark's reaction when trying to decide between Gemma or Helly, his deal with his Audi. Can he sacrifice himself? In general, the song has a feeling of being trapped within your own mind, caught in the relentless turning of thoughts and memories, the difficulty of letting go, and the mind's tendency to spiral even when you want peace. And weirdly, with its woe-inspiring tone, there's also a kind of beauty in the acceptance of this mental and emotional cycle of repeating. Now, if we take a closer look at the lyrics, several lines feel like they tie directly to events that have happened in Severance. Like a tunnel that you follow to a tunnel of its own, down a hollow to a cavern where the sun has never shone, like a door that keeps revolving in a half-forgotten dream, or the ripples from a pebble someone tosses in a stream, like a clock whose hands are sweeping past the minutes on its face, pictures hanging in a hallway, and the fragment of a song, half-remembered names and faces, but to whom do they belong? When you knew that it was over, you suddenly aware that the autumn leaves were turning to the color of her hair. Life is a circle, cycles repeat, just like the song starting and ending with the same lyrics. Theoretically, Mark has started and ended in the same place, not with Gemma. This repeating idea goes further when you add in the concept of love. The French translation of the song title actually is The Mills of My Heart. Mark and Helly are essentially in love, forgoing life, and instead leaning into inhibitions. Love has been hinted at more and more in Severance Season 2, with the red of the hallways both symbolizing love or passion and absolute dread. Because theoretically, what the are any Mark and Helly going to do now? Live forever on the severed floor and start a family of their own, birthing the next incarnation of the Egan lineage? Yeah, probably. Because according to PD's map, people do live down there, or rather the Glasgow block would allow any Mark to be with Helly at the Egan compound. In a roundabout way, Mark and Helly are Romeo and Juliet. They may even be the Adam and Eve of the severed floor. But going back to the repeating cycle idea, Mark and Helly mirror Keir and Imogen. Both of them found love in the spirit of industry, just like they did. And any Mark has proven he's full of wiles. The whole episode, he played outy Mark to get exactly what he wanted, to get back on the severed floor. Now, I do have an interesting theory both tying in with the repeating idea and the way the ending is a freeze frame zoom in, reminding me of the ending of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. If you're unfamiliar with the movie's ending, it's a slow zoom in to a picture from 1921 showing that Jack Torrance, or someone that kind of looks like him, has been a part of the Overlook Hotel, either through spiritual absorption or some sort of reincarnation of an earlier official at the hotel. Now, I think this may be actually happening with Mark. Obviously, he's special to Lumen because of Gemma's tests, but I think Mark, or someone like him, has always been by Keir's side because this mofo, praying by the bed of Keir in the youthful convalescence of Keir painting, has an awfully similar profile and characteristics of Mark Scout. Mark could be the missing piece of Keir that Lumen has been looking for, and he and Helly, unfortunately, are going to bring about the Lumen and Keir apocalypse in the future seasons as the cycle is just starting its repeating, or should I say, revolving.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
And that is it. The Severance Season 2 finale breakdown is in the books. I want to thank everyone. Seriously, thank you, everyone, for popping over here and watching these theories, my crazy thoughts, tasteless and tasteful jokes. I should have a Season 3 theories and a Season 2 Easter egg video in the next couple days, so stay tuned
for those other two Severance videos I mentioned. And feel free to drop all of your thoughts, feelings, theories, and out there ideas on Severance Season 2, what you hope to see in hopefully a Season 3, because personally, I want and need it now. Drop everything in the comments, and until Season 3,
I've been Any Jared B. I hope to see you for Season 3, and truly, it has been an honor. Bye-bye.